So many crazy stories, so little time. In this podcast, we'll do the work. We'll find the craziest, best stories out there and bring them to you every week. Hopefully, this will help you get through the craziness that is going on in the world. And of course, there will be booze. Welcome to Booze and Bullshit.
Damn it.
Oh. Uh-oh.
I love it.
It's on your laptop, though. Oh, dear God.
Can we say God in a Satanism episode?
We are now. Good afternoon.
Hello, Clarice. JK, you've already established that that's not the line.
Yeah, good point.
I did good.
How goes it?
It goes well. How about you?
It goes.
How are you enjoying spooky season?
I love spooky season.
I do too.
I less love this migraine that I'm recovering from.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Fuck migraines.
Super fuck migraines.
Mm-hmm. I'm Allie.
I'm Celeste.
Welcome to Taboos, guys.
Hi, thank you for having me. I mean,
What?
I don't know.
Okay, we're a podcast that discusses taboo culture.
It's true, we do.
And we are in our third episode.
Yes, this is our third episode of spooky season.
Oh God, math is hard.
And the month is flying by.
Agreed. You want to cover spooky season?
Sure. Spooky season is we are talking about taboo culture that is a little extra occult. It's like, you guys, spooky, not that hard. We are covering shit that is not only taboo, but is also a little extra scary.
Yeah, or at least seen that way by society.
Correct. To fit like the Halloween spooky season narrative.
There you
Halloween is my favorite holiday. Is it your favorite holiday?
Yes.
Excellent. So that's really where we're coming from in saying we're doing a little special ode homage to,
Ooh.
Thank you,
Fancy.
to Halloween and making this whole month spooktacular.
Oh dear God.
Ooh.
I cannot sometimes.
You love my dad jokes. Don't even. Also, today, let's talk about what we're drinking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so today we have Stella Artois cider, cidre, European style cider. Would you say that's cidre?
Yeah, I would.
I would too. They're literally the best cider beer that I've ever had. Like, they're so crisp and clean and still have like a bite to it though. Like, it's not quite a Red's apple, but it's not quite an Angry Orchard either.
Yeah.
It's so smooth.
Have you always been wearing shorts or did you change?
I changed. It was really hot in here.
I just noticed.
And I spilled on myself.
It is really fucking hot in here.
Mm-hmm. And we can't turn on the air conditioning because it's so loud and you guys would be able to hear it.
We suffer for you guys.
We do. It's true. That's the sacrifices we make.
So today we are covering a topic that you actually brought up and I was super geeked when you mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
It is Satanism.
Woohoo! Satanism!
We're actually rocking double horns and you can't see.
It's true. We've just been waiting for this moment to just turn you all. JK LOL.
Oh, I meant like rock double horns.
Oh.
Which, by the way, that hand gesture was to ward off evil.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Rock on.
Indeed.
Can I tell you that my favorite, just as you said that and you were doing it, and this might get cut out because it's totally irrelevant, but my favorite version of the rock on fingers is in Trolls World Tour when Ozzy Osbourne as a troll is like trying really hard to get his fingers to do the little rock on symbol and they can't. So then one of like his little band
Mates.
people comes up and like flips his two fingers up and it's so funny. He's got like the little biker gloves on because he's in a wheelchair, but like he doesn't, it's an automatic wheelchair, so it's like extra funny that he's wearing these like biker gloves. Such a cute movie.
I've never seen this.
We're talking about trolls and Satanism at the same time. That's really how hardcore we are.
Yeah, this works. There's gonna be a lot of See, here we go. What?
Just so you know, this is setting the tone for the rest of the episode.
Hard words, guys.
Mispronunciation.
I'm not great at them.
And she is on her first beer.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that.
I'm just gonna use the migraine as an excuse.
Carry forth.
All right, so this is gonna get broken down later on, but this was a lot more extensive than I ever realized it was gonna be, and I already knew some foundations of Satanism. So buckle in,
I'm buckled.
baby.
We have a special guest here today. Tiny's kitten Static is here recording with us today, so there might be some noises that are uneditable. We'll do our best, but apologize in advance if at some point some shit happens to us, because he's the naughtiest little precious angel ever.
He is.
His little belly.
His little muse.
His little fat face. And his
Please
little
do
self.
not chew on that cord. Hey.
Static.
So to dive into it, Satan first became a figure, or was first seen as a figure, in Zoroastrianism.
Love that word.
Probably butchered that word.
I think you did great.
It's an ancient Persian religion, and also in the Jewish Kabbalism. So I thought it was interesting that most people attribute Satan to
Christianity.
Yeah, and it's older than some versions. Well, that's a good question. I don't know. It's older than some versions of that religion, but he became more of a central figure in Abrahamic religion.
Do you think we could just say it's safe to guess that Satan and Satanism is not older than porn? Part of me just feels like porn is the dawn of time. Like, there was dinosaurs and then there was porn. That's what I'm going to go with.
All right, well, that works for me.
That's my timeline now.
So in the Bible, Satan starts out as a defiant angel whose story begins in the book of Numbers, and then essentially he goes through his Pokemon evolutions to his final form of ultimate evil in the book of Revelations.
Gotta catch them all.
Yep.
I feel like he'd be on Team Rocket. Or
Yeah.
he'd be like a shadow Pokemon for sure.
Yeah, or Gary.
Yeah, that asshole.
Gary's like your ultimate
Asshole.
opposition.
Yeah.
I don't remember which Pokemon version. Out of all the names, though, they just named him Gary.
Gary.
So in the 17th century, Romantics recast him as admirable and a charismatic rebel, basically as an anti-hero, defying God's authoritarianism.
Okay.
Most specifically, John Milton's epic poem Paradise Lost is the pivotal text for establishing this interpretation. Also, just to cite my sources, because I am not Celeste and I don't list my sources for every quote, I got all of this from History.com, The Guardian, some of Reddit, the Satanic Temple, The Independent, and the Church of Satan.
Wow, you really went all out. Get it, girl.
It was a rabbit hole.
So what Allie is telling you right now is we're sparing you from going to the rabbit hole yourself.
Or go there if you're more interested.
Or do it. We're not saying you should. We are open to all the things. We're just saying this way, maybe we spared you 7 hours of research.
Prior to the 20th century, Satanism didn't really exist as an organized religion, but was commonly claimed by Christian churches as being real. These claims surfaced particularly when persecuting other religious groups, such as during the Inquisition, various witch hysterias, stay tuned possibly, in Europe and colonial America.
Okay, so really, are you saying that Christianity basically gave birth to the concept of Satanism as like a competitor?
Yeah, yep.
Oh, that's so fucked up. Okay, carry on.
And yet so not shocking.
No, not shocking at all. And yet, like, so fucked up. So fucked up that we don't have a natural predator, so we're gonna give you one so that you're scared. That's fucked up.
The hysteria rose to witch hunt levels in the 1980s and 90s in what became as known as the Satanic Panic.
Satanic Panic sounds like a band name.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Do you want to go to their show?
Yeah, why not?
Let's do it.
This was doubtlessly inflamed by imagery of horror movies such as like The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby. I can't think of any other ones, but Rosemary's Baby really comes to mind for me.
That one stands out for me also, but also The Exorcism of Emily Rose stands out to me. The Exorcist.
That wasn't out in the 1980s and 90s though.
Okay, listen. My reference point on scary fucking movies is incredibly narrow. The fact that I just gave you a real title of a real scary movie, can you just fucking be proud of me for that? Can you not criticize my time frame on that?
We are now going to insert like 2010 movies into the 1980s and 90s. Done. It is now a word.
Celeste said.
So Christian groups began finding evidence, quote unquote, of Satanism everywhere. For instance, subliminal messages in rock records. Have you ever heard of like subliminal messages or backmasking?
I have heard of this. I am familiar with the concept in a psychological concept, because that's subliminal messaging is literally why marketing is successful. But I do know what you're talking about as far as pop culture references to satanic subliminal messaging.
Yeah.
I I don't have any specific examples that I'm aware of, but I do know this is a thing.
So the most popular one, or the most well-known one, is probably Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven.
Yes.
Certain words, when said together, do say certain things backwards unintentionally.
Sure. Yeah, or even if it just sounds really closely, the syntax is pretty close. Like, you could make that argument.
Yeah, so that was kind of the rise of it. Another addition of the Satanic Panic was that there were insinuations that there was a group of people molesting children and sacrificing them as forms of...
Like sacrificial?
Yeah, like to honor Satan. And there was an actual trial or some sort of investigation about it. I didn't dive too much into it because this was already 70,000 pages long.
Yeah.
But essentially, there was no bias there. And unironically, it was the Catholic Church priests that were molesting children.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. More recently, though, 2,000 people signed an online petition condemning the Amazon adaptation of the book by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman called Good Omens, as stating that it's another step to make Satanism appear normal.
I mean, is there... maybe we'll get to this in your research, but I mean, from what you found, is there any reason that Satanism shouldn't be normal?
No.
Okay.
But I guess it's their interpretation of what Satanism is.
That's fair, but that you could say that about Buddhism and Hinduism and Muslim practices and about pretty much any religion.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just really, before we move forward, everybody, let's get on that page of this is just a religion. This is somebody else's religion, and it isn't the stereotype of what we think it is.
Yeah, exactly. And we may rag on religion, specifically on Christianity, sometimes in our podcast. However, ... it's not the comfort that people find in that religion.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. The reason that I personally, I don't want to speak for you on this, but the reason that I personally rag on religion, specifically Christianity, from my perspective, is my experience with it. It isn't this comforting, amazing, powerful thing in my experience.
Mine is just, I don't agree with the persecution of anyone based on religion.
That's part of mine also. I think I was raised non-religious intentionally because my mom was raised in a very religious household, and in the sense of like a brainwashing very religious household, and my mom never forced that on me. My mom's position was always, if you would like to identify as a religion, you can choose that. And that's just kind of where I stand. So then being raised that way and then having other members of my family be extremely religious, it was super easy for me to identify like there's some brainwashing happening here. And that was my experience with religion, and that's why I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
It isn't, just to reiterate, it isn't the core of the belief. It isn't what the belief makes people feel or the hope or any of that. It has nothing to do with that. It is my experience with certain types of people who claim religion and are still really bad fucking people.
Maybe you'll find here that you align more with Satanism.
Tell me more.
So, legendary occultist Aleister Crowley views Satan symbolically. He had created a poem in 1913 called A Hymn to Lucifer that celebrated the devil as the provider of soul and rebellion to the universe.
I love that his name is Crowley because...
Yeah, that's why his name is Crowley.
Oh, I love that. Okay, for anybody who doesn't know the mental telepathy that we just had, Crowley is the king of the underworld in Supernatural, which is, Supernatural is one of my favorite shows. Dean Winchester, man of my dreams.
So Crowley's ideas were pretty influential in Satanism. There's a lot involved in Satanism as far as different branches.
Okay.
I cannot cover them all and do them any sort of justice without this being a 6-hour long episode, possibly more. So
what Allie is saying, you guys, is right now you're getting the kindergarten color by number version of Satanism.
Yep, Cliff Notes.
If you'd like us to do more on this episode later, we would be happy to. You just have to tell us that. But here's the kindergarten version of it.
So I broke it out into two main types. There are theistic Satanists. They believe that Satan is a group of supra-personal dark forces capable of having some control or influence over human beings. To me, and I could be completely wrong here, but let's say what most people in the world view as the forces of evil.
Sure.
And I'm using evil because it's a relatable idea.
I mean, people can align to that concept when you say that.
Yeah, and I would say that this group potentially views those forces as being real.
Okay. So just for a second, again, because I'm I'm digesting at a kindergarten level also. And now I'm in the thought of supernatural. Would you say those are like presence you're describing is more of like an average demon presence, according to the show, according to Supernatural, which is not related to Satanism, but again, I'm in that mind space.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I mean, don't quote me. I have no idea.
I won't quote you. I'll just play back the episode.
There we go. A prime example of it is the Order of Nine Angels, which is an occult group in the UK. Their members strive to become one with Satan and other dark forces and create more highly evolved individuals.
Oh.
But even within occultism, theistic Satanists are extremely rare, and it's predicted that their numbers are in the low thousands.
Oh, okay. All right.
The other side of it is the atheistic Satanism, which doesn't acknowledge the existence of God or Satan.
That sounds like you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't acknowledge the existence of any supernatural beings, so sure.
Carry forth.
All right. The way that they view Satan is as a symbolic adversary of religion and traditional morality.
Okay.
They invoke Satan not as a supernatural being, but as a symbol of man's self-gratifying ego, which is what they really worship, as a quote from Time magazine in 1972. Yeah. One of the ways the Church of Satan explains this is by saying, we see the universe as being indifferent to us, and so all morals and values are subjective human constructs. Our position is to be self-centered, with ourselves being the most important person or the God of their universe. So we worship ourselves.
And yet, I don't know if I can personally align with that, but I can see it. I can see that concept being real for humans. Like,
It's kind of like an egocentric
yeah,
outlook.
exactly.
From my researching, I kind of narrowed down the two main branches today of Satanism, or the two, let's say, organizations.
Okay.
There is the Church of Satan and the Satanic Temple.
Okay.
So there's a few main differences, and I'm just going to read right off this infograph on the Satanic Temple's website. But just to clarify, this is probably bias.
Okay.
Because from what I can tell, neither really like each other. So, okay, here we go.
Ready.
Founding dates of the Church of Satan versus the Satanic Temple. The Church of Satan was founded in 1966. Satanic Temple in 2013. The Satanic Temple is officially recognized as tax exempt by the IRS. They are a church.
Okay.
The Church of Satan is not. They are not recognized as a quote-unquote official religion.
Okay. That's weird that they're practicing the same religion, just different ways. Like, I think about the difference between being Catholic and being Christian, which are the same religion, just different perspectives of it. And this is the same thing, and yet they're not both viewed as religion. That's very weird.
That's a good way of looking at it. They are essentially kind of like two branches.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Church of Satan has perhaps not pursued that official designation.
Oh, okay.
They are both taken seriously by credible religious scholars as a manifestation of modern Satanism. Neither believe in actual Satan. The Church of Satan does believe in magic. The Satanic Temple does not. They both have different foundational texts, which I'll get into later. They both dive a little bit more into political views or agendas. I would say that the Satanic Temple a bit more.
Okay.
The Satanic Temple fights for secularism, whereas the Church of Satan does not. And then the Satanic Temple has a physical headquarters. The Church of Satan, I couldn't tell whether or not they do, to be honest. I thought I found something that said it was, but maybe it's not official. So the Satanic Temple holds regular meetings and events. Now, one thing, as I stated, is this might be biased, and from what I can tell, the Church of Satan, if they do hold regular meetings and events, it's not necessarily publicized.
Sure. It's not like a congregation in the same way that other religions bring people together.
Yeah, the Satanic Temple may more be, but the Church of Satan not so much.
Okay.
They both accept donations.
That's really interesting that the church of, say, the one that is not the identified church.
Church of Satan, yep.
Okay, so the Church of Satan can take donations because they would not be considered a nonprofit organization.
Yeah. I don't know.
So
how
that's
that
really
works.
that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. The Church of Satan does have a membership fee. The Satanic Temple does not. The Satanic Temple does have the Bahamut monument that they either put up and is now down, or tried to put up, or something of that nature. That pretty much covers some of the differences.
Okay.
Once again, that probably is a little biased based on the source, so keep
Fair.
that in mind.
Fair.
So some other differences that I found, to just kind of narrow it down a little bit, was that the Church of Satan fundamentally espouses the egoist philosophy, whereas the Satanic Temple espouses a fundamentally humanist or altruistic philosophy.
Okay.
And that'll make more sense a little bit later on, but obviously having those very different philosophies puts them at odds with one another.
With one another, yeah.
So the Church of Satan focuses mainly around LaVeyan Satanism, which is the founder. We'll get into that.
Like LaVeyan is a person?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why, but you said LaVeyan and my brain went to Leviathan and I was like, just then imagining a Leviathan.
Just focused on that supernatural. It's LaVeyan, like L-A, and then capital V-E-Y-A-N. It's the last name.
Last name, got it.
Yeah. It's essentially about living the best life that you want to live and bending the world around you to your own will to achieve that goal. You are your own God.
That's like ultimate hype girl status.
Yep.
I don't hate that philosophy. I mean, I'm not a god. I'm not saying that, but like I have referenced myself as a goddess before, like, and I mean, I have referenced other people as gods or goddesses before. So maybe that's not a terrible thing.
The Satanic Temple, by comparison, is a lot more politically active, and they definitely take a more community-based stance on some things. For instance, what their activism is involved. I would say that the Church of Satan would say that's about those people, not about myself. Therefore, it's not as important to me.
Oh, okay. Do you have an example of
The political activism?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll dig into that.
Okay.
So for the first side to focus on, it will be the Church of Satan. The Church of Satan wasn't officially formed until the 1960s by Anton LaVey. Somewhere between 1957 and 1960, LaVey, who was a former carnival worker and musician, held night classes in the occult, and regular attendees eventually formed the Church of Satan.
Oh, so they literally were just like, let's
start a club.
And then they were like, here's our church now. That's really cool.
The sessions were mostly discussion-based, but on April 30th, 1966, the group formalized as the Church of Satan, and the meetings became more ritual-based, incorporating theatrics, costuming, and music. LaVey actually became known as the Black Pope. Yeah, I thought this was super interesting and how appropriate for our last topic. The church's early recruiting efforts included a night show called the Topless Witches Review nightclub, featuring Susan Atkins, who would later join the Manson family.
Oh, Susie. She's back in our episodes.
So the Church of Satan, one of their main foundational beliefs is the Satanic Bible, which was written by LaVey. I wonder if I'm saying his name wrong. I didn't even think to look it up because it seems like it would be said as it's spelled.
I feel like that's pretty phonetically legit.
If I'm wrong, my apologies. He published his Satanic Bible in 1969. Hey.
I mean, are we back to the position where we can be excited about 1969?
I think so.
Okay. Hi, welcome back to 1969.
I love that all these thematic ideas happen in that year, too. There's some power in that number.
1969 was a fucking trippy year. Maybe that was like, nothing can beat 2020.
So the Bible consists of his own personal mix of black magic and occult concepts along with secular philosophy and rationalism. There is obviously anti-Christian ridicule into essays stressing human anatomy.
Autonomy.
Thank you.
Human autonomy.
And self-determination in the face of an indifferent universe. So there is no God out there to care or who cares. Be your own.
So when you were struggling with the word autonomy, the first place that my brain went was if someone wanted to get an abortion, the whole premise of you can't get an abortion because that's an abomination against God. In SA, it would be...
It's fine.
It's totally fine because it's your body, it's your choice.
From my interpretation of it, yes.
I think all people should have autonomy over their body.
I concur.
And pockets.
I concur.
Women should have more pockets.
Yes. Fucking pants need more pockets.
All right.
The Satanic Bible gave the church a national reputation and served as a strong vehicle for its significant growth. One of his main inspirations for it was the author Ayn Rand. Atlas Shrugged.
He shrugged?
No, Ayn Rand wrote Atlas Shrugged.
Okay.
Which was essentially a story that's very much focused around the egocentric philosophy.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot more to that book, but that was one of the...
What I think is really interesting here is that as we continue to talk about egocentrism, that is such a prevalent emotional and mental process that children have to go through, like every child. Mm-hmm. You as a child, me as a child, our parents as children. Children go through an egocentric phase where they literally don't understand that things happen outside of them.
Yeah.
What's very interesting to me about this is we encourage children as a society to grow beyond that and recognize like shit happens outside of you all the time. But this religion is saying don't.
Yeah.
Like, look out for number one and number one only, which is still you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hate that idea.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't.
I mean, I think we need to take into account society as well, but I think there's no harm in also knowing when to put yourself first.
Well, exactly. And I think that's where I'm coming from in the fact that I don't hate it compared to other formal religions where you're putting someone else above you at all times. Mm-hmm. The relationship with you and a God is God, and then you, and then maybe your significant other and your children. But God is still above all.
Yeah.
I have a personal issue with that because what if a decision that I need to make, okay, for example, Andrew is gay, right? Mm-hmm. And he had a really hard time, which he attested to. He had a really hard time with what he knew was true about himself and what God would think about him. But if Andrew applied this philosophy, what he thinks about himself is more important.
Yeah, I agree.
Than what God thinks about you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the piece that I like. That is the piece that I appreciate about this religion.
I agree. In the Satanic Bible, there are 9 satanic statements made in the introductory chapters.
Kind of like the 9 commandments. 10 commandments?
There's 10.
How many?
12? Hang on.
All
10 commandments. Why?
The commandments.
The 12 commandments.
The 12 days of Christmas?
Yeah, also that. So
we're doing so good here.
The satanic statements are as follows.
Ready.
Satan represents indulgence instead of abstinence.
Love that idea.
Abstinence.
I like indulgence.
So do I. Satan represents vital existence instead of spiritual pipe dreams.
I could see that one. I like it less than indulgence, but I could see that.
Satan represents undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit.
I love undeniable wisdom and hate hypocrisy, so there's another check for me.
Satan represents kindness to those who deserve it instead of love wasted on ingrates.
I fucking love that philosophy.
Yeah, that is 100%.
That's a hard check for me.
That needs to be on a t-shirt.
Yep.
Don't love ingrates.
Fucking hate ingrates.
Satan represents vengeance instead of turning the other cheek. I found it interesting that that's pretty much like a direct fuck you to the Bible.
That is a direct fuck you to the Bible.
I don't necessarily align with that one.
I have an issue with that one. I do because of some personal things that we've experienced.
I have issues with vigilantism.
I would agree with that, except for Batman.
I was just thinking, but I love Batman, and I don't understand why he gets a pass. Is it just because he's fake?
I don't know. And honestly, the reason that I love Batman is because he has the best villains, and I think that a hero is only as good as their villains.
That is very true.
So,
Satan represents responsibility to the responsible instead of concern for psychic vampires. As soon as I said that, I was like, she's either gonna love it or have a really weird reaction to that.
I do love it. That one gets a check just because it's amazing.
I just got this image in my head of somebody being a psychic vampire and like staring at someone from a corner.
I'm going to suck your blood.
I understand the other indications of what they are, but I just got this like very South Park image in my head. Satan represents man as just another animal who, because of his divine spiritual and intellectual development, has become the most vicious animal of all.
That's legit. Mm-hmm. That's legit. Humans are the worst predator there is in the entire fucking cosmos.
Yeah.
Like that we're aware of, at least. So, like, that one's a hard check, too.
Yep. Satan represents all of these so-called sins as they all lead to physical, mental, or emotional gratification. I tried to figure out...
Like the 7 original sins?
Well, I tried to figure out if that meant that they condone all the sins, and from what I can tell, that's a no. They still have lines.
Right.
But they're saying that if it makes you feel good and doesn't harm others.
Which is, if you go back to our first episode of this podcast, I'm pretty sure that was a direct quote that we said previous to knowing anything about Satanism. So let's just go down that path, right? If it is true that Satanism aligns with the 7 original sins, which I don't know any of them except lust and gluttony, because those are probably the 2 I'm the most guilty of.
Greed, pride, wrath.
You're doing much better than I am.
God damn it, I'm failing my anime fan.
And yet all I can
right
see
now.
is Samuel L. Jackson in my head, like from the Seven movie.
Yeah, I immediately went to Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh.
Also, what's in the box? Anyways.
So, okay, let's just say
Oh, lust.
lust and gluttony. Allie, I said those. You don't get credit for my two that I said.
Sorry.
If being lustful and being gluttonous make me happy, their position is then I can be lustful and gluttonous. Like, I don't have to be ashamed that I just want to nom nom on the Reese's.
From my interpretation, that is accurate.
I like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of a higher power that doesn't judge me and my nom noms.
This is my favorite out of all of them.
Okay, I'm so excited.
Satan has been the best friend the Christian church has ever had, as he has kept it in business all these years.
Shots fired.
Oh, so many shots fired.
Absolute shots fired. Like, they're going to need an ambulance for that burn.
Agreed. It's a hellfire level burn.
It's not even 3rd degree. It's 9th degree. Like, get it? Like the 9 circles of hell.
So within the Church of Satan, this is what I found on their website as far as their satanic theory/practice. Quote, Satanism demands study, not worship. Here you will find the basics of Satanism, policy statements, and essays by the hierarchy clarifying Satanism and questioning behaviors. The essays, interviews, and statements should provoke thought. They should give you a complete understanding of Satanism while inspiring critical insight required for self-actualization.
So it is a search for this quote unquote higher power, but within yourself.
Yeah.
It's a search for God within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, say more things.
One of the other things I copied aside from the rules that we went over from the Satanic Bible, these are the 11 satanic rules of the earth that they ascribe by. Do not give opinions or advice unless you are asked.
I love that.
Yep. Worldwide rule.
I think that's a great worldwide rule.
Mm-hmm. Do not tell your troubles to other unless you are sure they want to hear them.
Uh-huh.
I just feel like we could add most of these to a shirt. When in another's lair, which can we now refer to our homes as lairs, show him respect or else do not go there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for showing me respect in my lair.
Not a problem. I try whenever I go to anybody's lair to show respect.
I really like your lair. I really like your lair.
Boo. Are we pronouncing this word right? Or is this our accent? Because I'm hearing layer. Layer.
The word, it's lair.
Yeah, but I can't say that.
I can't say it without thinking about it. The word is lair.
So
it's
lair. Here I go saying it wrong again. If a guest in your lair annoys you, treat him cruelly and without mercy.
Yes.
Do not make sexual advances unless you are given the mating signal.
Can we now refer to it as the mating signal? I want to see
your best mating signal.
I want to see your best mating signals.
Yep.
But no dick pics. That is not
go.
a mating signal.
Do not take that which does not belong to you unless it is a burden to the other person and he cries out to be relieved.
That's generous.
Mm-hmm. Acknowledge the power of magic if you have employed it successfully to obtain your desires. If you deny the power of magic after having called upon it with success, you will lose all you have obtained.
I believe in magic.
I do not.
Do you believe in magic, magic? I'm pretty sure that's how that song goes.
Okay, I'm lost, but that's not uncommon. Do not complain about anything to which you need not subject yourself.
Oh, I need to take a page out of that book.
I concur.
Okay, next.
Do not harm little children.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Like, who fucking does that shit?
Do not kill non-human animals unless you are attacked or for your food.
Fair. So does that mean that most Satanists are vegetarian? Or maybe pescatarian?
It says or for your food. Unless you are attacked or for your food.
Maybe I was just excited about saying pescatarian again.
Maybe.
It is my favorite word.
And finally, when walking in open territory, bother no one. If someone bothers you, ask him to stop. If he does not stop, destroy him.
I might deeply align with Satanism.
I agree with most of these.
Destroy him. Oh, funny, not funny. Like, really though, seriously, as I think about those live by rules, those are really great rules. Mm-hmm. Like, those are really beautiful. If we were talking about anything other than a religion that started with the word Satan, those would be really beautiful, like, commandments.
Could you imagine taking and posting that somewhere as rules to live by and leaving out that it's related to Satanism and then just like recording people's reactions.
Yeah, or you know what I think of? Like one of those house rule canvases
Yeah,
that like are at Hobby Lobby where like in this house we say please and thank you and we wash our hands, and I have one in one of my bathrooms, but like a family rules chart like that, except those commandments, and honestly, that would sell. It would, without people having any understanding that those are like the commandments of Satanism.
Could you imagine if somebody did have that in their home and you walked out and you were like, "Oh, are you a Satanist?"
I mean, but like, now that I know, I think that would be kind of exciting.
Could you imagine it though if they didn't realize it and you recognized it for what it was and they were like, "No," and you're like, "But you have hang on.
Satanic commandments right here."
I wonder if that would open them up to being more willing to accept Satanism.
It would depend on the person. If this person was of a religious faith outside of Satanism, I would say no, and they would likely burn it.
But they agree enough with it to have this
Listen,
Hobby Lobby sign.
I'm not saying that it's right. I'm not saying that their approach with what they did with their Hobby Lobby sign after they found out what it was is correct. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, how many people do you know who would be like, oh no, I can't support that, even though what the concept is accurate and what you align with, like it's just the philosophy behind it.
Yeah.
Like a counter protest.
So that covers my very minimal research on the Church of Satan. Now on to the Satanic Temple. The Satanic Temple's mission statement is as follows. The mission of the Satanic Temple is to encourage benevolence and empathy, reject tyrannical authority, advocate practical common sense, oppose injustice, and undertake noble pursuits. Hello, I love this slogan. Not slogan, mission statement. I just love it.
Let us run for president with that mission statement. I don't like, why is that not how we treat people?
But one thing I find very interesting within this ties back to that earlier note where the Church of Satan, all of that was very egocentric focused.
Yeah,
and
that's
this
true.
mission statement is very much about
Others.
Yeah, your impact on others as well.
How fascinating that like they're saying the same thing but from two totally, like seriously, my little empath brain right now is literally picturing these two people like almost like twins, right? Like identical twins back to back facing in opposite directions but standing for the same thing.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So the founder of the Church of Satan was Lucian Greaves. I should say he's their spokesperson and de facto leader.
Isn't Lucian also a name in Supernatural?
Well, I mean, it's in Harry Potter. Oh, no, it's Lucius.
That's Lucius Malfoy.
Yeah.
I know Lucian from somewhere.
I mean, it's in probably millions of literary texts. So.
You're in millions of literary texts.
Sure.
Carry on.
So this is a quote from him. It became very apparent that there was a real need for what we were doing. More and more, they try to whittle away the rights of others and define us as a Christian nation to the extent that religious liberty applies to them alone. That's just a scary circumstance for us to be in.
That is such a fantastic quote. And oh, I just got chills because as you said that, all I could think about was the Pledge of Allegiance saying one nation under God. And although I respect the premise of the Pledge of Allegiance, I don't know if I agree with the one nation under God, because what if we don't all believe in God? But that is exactly what this statement is saying, is if you don't believe in God, you are not permitted the luxury of freedom that is granted within this country.
Hey, thank you for that segue.
You are so welcome.
He goes on to say, side note, Lucian is Harvard educated. Not to say that non-Harvard educated people are not well-spoken, but he's very well-spoken.
Cheers to being articulate, Lucian.
I am not. This is why I'm just reading his words. He goes on to point out within this article that I was reading that I'm so sorry I did not write down the direct article. But
everyone's going to be really mad. I'm really
sure.
mad.
There is no mention of God in the U.S. Constitution, but there is a First Amendment protecting freedom of expression and religion. The words "under God" were added to the U.S. Pledge of Allegiance in 1954, and "In God We Trust" first printed on U.S. currency in 1956, so as to differentiate the U.S. from the godless communists. Up until that point, it had been "E pluribus unum," from many one, which was a much better motto.
I would agree, a much better motto, and also so much less. The separation of church and state is so much easier, considering if you take out Christianity or Catholicism and you plug in this, right? Like sometimes I do this. Sometimes I literally take other religions and plug them into American culture and government and history and whatever, just to kind of like play out how it would be different.
Yeah.
So if you took one of many instead of one nation under God, that changes the entire connotation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yep.
Truly identifying, I am one person in a country of many. I am one piece of the whole, meaning we are all important. However, in the traditional Pledge of Allegiance, like I said before, one nation under God, if you don't identify with a God or with God, it's not even a God, it's God.
Yep.
They're forcing religion on you, which is totally defeats the purpose of the separation of church and state.
Yeah.
And it's actually just another level of hypocrisy within our government.
I agree with all those things. I'm so glad that Satanism is bringing up this conversation.
I love this conversation.
Yeah, so do I. I just thought I knew a lot of this before my research. All of this.
And I didn't know any of this. And honestly, when we were talking about spooky season, I mean, okay, so you guys, originally we had cults on the list of spooky season topics that we could choose from. And I just randomly was like, why wouldn't we do Satanism? And Allie was like, oh, holy shit. Yes. Like, duh. So really, like, I can't believe I didn't know shit about Satanism, and this is fascinating. Like, this is genuinely fascinating to me. So thank you for doing this research and sharing it with me. I know you're not done, and I'm not stopping you. I just really want you to hear me say how much I appreciate that you did so much research on this topic, because I think this is amazing.
Thank you for recommending it. So there are 7 tenets of the Satanic temples, or I guess another word for tenets would be like credences.
So do you mean
Rules.
Okay.
From my understanding, one should strive to act with compassion and empathy towards all creatures in accordance with reason.
Agreed.
The struggle for justice is an ongoing and necessary pursuit that should prevail over laws and institutions.
Abolish the system that did not arrest the cops who murdered Breonna Taylor.
One's body is inviolable, subject to one's own will alone.
Meaning my body, my right, my choice, my body. Stay the fuck out of it.
Yep.
Love that one.
The freedoms of others should be respected, including the freedom to offend. To willfully and unjustly encroach upon the freedoms of another is to forego one's own.
So truly everybody has the choice to do what they want to do. You don't have the right to take that from them, which I align with, right? Because I think about all the good things that people stand in the way of happening, like gay marriage or women having autonomy over their own bodies and stuff like that. But like, what happens if your will is to do something bad to someone else? Because then you would be inadvertently taking away their will in that situation. So how does that work?
From my understanding, they don't agree with, this isn't a you can do harm unto others. This is saying it's okay to offend other people. That's on them that they're offended. It's not on you to discredit your beliefs or your statements because somebody else is offended.
Oh, okay. I'm with you. Then yeah, fuck yeah.
So basically everyone's
entitled to their own opinion.
Yeah, regardless of
love that.
How their opinions are based, which honestly, I agree with it. It's something that I struggle with personally because I do try to like enlighten people if I feel that their opinion is wrong, and I need to be better at that, but I agree with the sentiment of this.
I agree with the sentiment of it as well.
Beliefs should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. One should take care never to distort scientific facts to fit one's own belief.
Did you write that law for them?
Actually, for the purpose of COVID, yes. People are fallible. If one makes a mistake, one should do one's best to rectify it and resolve any harm that might have been caused.
I love that one. I hardcore love that one.
Every tenet is a guiding principle designed to inspire nobility in action and thought. The spirit of compassion, wisdom, and justice should always prevail over the written or spoken word.
I think that's so beautiful, and I'm really conflicted and I'm really struggling because the perception of Satanism is so dark and terrible and demonic and bloody and bad, right? Like that is the perception of that culture that we have been exposed to, and yet here you're saying all these like really beautiful, enlightening things, and the mental image I have in my head versus the image that you're creating by telling me that this religion practices these things is so conflicting, almost as conflicting as where you should put your Gatorade.
I just want to take a drink.
Do you need assistance?
I just need to put this down. Do you need assistance? Yes, Baymax.
I think that to have that exposed, that false narrative exposed is like really, I'm shell shocked right now. Like, I'm not gonna lie about it. I'm shell shocked.
Yeah, I will never ascribe to any religious label.
No way.
Ever.
I hear you.
But doing this research has definitely intrigued me to look more into them, just to understand more and just talk to anyone involved in the Church of Satan or the Satanic Temple. I probably align more with the Satanic Temple than I do with the Church of Satan. I believe in an egocentric viewpoint to a degree, but I am more prone to caring about my impact on the community as well than they seem to be. I could be judging this completely wrong too, but that's just how I feel.
No, I appreciate your feelings on it. From what you're telling me, I equally respect both. I agree with the fact that I'm not like sitting here trying to identify as a specific religion. Like, that's not what I'm about. But I would agree with you, like, the way that you've presented both, given the research that you've done, I could foresee either being applicable to me if I were looking for a religion.
Yeah. One of the main things from my research, there's a bitter feud between the two.
It sounds like that.
And one of the things that I read was a Church of Satan member basically saying that the Satanic Temple is just political activism wrapped in a Satanistic blanket.
Sure.
Yeah. But I mean, I also think that's wrong. And if you're not in it, whose right is it to say that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let people believe what they want to believe as long as it's not harming others.
Yeah.
There's so many different interpretations of all religions out there that if this is how they choose to label and worship themselves or worship
what they believe in,
yeah, then more power to them.
I agree, and I align, like, truly I align with all of that. And I think, like, not to sound like a broken record, you guys, but that's our whole premise here. Like, all of the words Allie just said, that's our premise, is we're literally just here to have these conversations and to learn and to have different perspectives and broaden horizons, and we want you to do that with us. Like, we're not here judging anybody, or okay, we make some shallow comments about other religions just again because we're not good people. But I mean, seriously, other than that, like, we're not here hating anybody, we're not downing on anybody. I think this is fascinating. And if you're uncomfortable with this topic, then just wait for next week's episode.
Yeah, there we go. So here is just kind of a few fun things about the Satanic Temple.
I love fun things about satanic temples.
When the City Council of Phoenix, Arizona began its meetings with the Christian prayer, the Satanic Temple demanded that satanic prayers should be said as well.
Ooh.
The council chose then to drop the prayers altogether.
There shall be no prayers.
When the Child Evangelism Fellowship set up the pro-Christian Good News Clubs in U.S. public school, the Satanic Temple introduced its own after-school Satan clubs promoting scientific rationalism.
I love this. I really you know what?
Billy is also involved in some after-school clubs.
I think you said that Satanism is kind of sort of this like anti-hero concept.
Yeah,
like
Satan in Paradise Lost was depicted as kind of such.
But even as you tell me how these religions have stepped in, I still see it as this anti-hero, like in such a good way, like a little Deadpool. Like, I picture a Deadpool showing up in Phoenix, Arizona, being like, oh, okay, you want to have that prayer time? Well, guess what? You're also going to say my prayer time then, because that's what's fair. And then Arizona's like, hard pass. We'll skip prayer time. Like, that is such a bold move to protect our country in that concept of separation of church and state, which is applicable to schools, to public schools, to colleges, like public colleges, to healthcare. Like, the number of times that I have experienced somebody question my religion or Tiny's religion within a structure that has no right to question our religion is crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
And we live here. I can't imagine living in other parts of the country or in the world. In the world is less applicable because maybe church and state separation isn't really in other parts of the world, but specifically in other parts of our country, there are incredibly highly church-driven states where they probably don't get away with that. So I really appreciate that they stepped in and are like, nope, if you're not saying our prayers too, it's not happening.
Yeah.
And then that just means that we don't have to say those prayers.
The final little fun bit is when the Oklahoma State Capitol permitted the installation of a Ten Commandments sculpture in its grounds, the Satanic Temple campaigned to erect its own 8-foot-high statue of Bahamut, the goat-headed cloven deity.
Ooh, I have a fun fact about what's Bahamut?
Bahamut?
Bahamut.
Yep.
Okay, so I have a fun fact about Bahamut. Actually, there was, which this brings a whole new fucking meaning to this and whole new twist to this for me. I, for 5 seconds, watched the Sabrina show on Netflix, and it was actually too scary for me because let's just once again say I'm a giant pussy. But it was too scary for me. But I saw a headline at one point where I think it was the Satanic Church actually kind of went after Netflix because they used Bahamut without permission from the church. They used a sculpture, like an actual sculpture of him in this scene without their permission, and they were like demonizing it. Like it was in this demonizing evil presence scene, and they were like really offended by it. Like not only did you take our God and you demonized him and took him out of context, you didn't ask us for that. Like you didn't ask us if you could do that. And that brings like a whole new meaning to me now that I understand what the culture represents, because fuck yeah, I'd be offended as fuck by that.
Yeah.
The same way that white people are offended at the concept that Jesus was not white.
Yeah.
Carry on.
A few just kind of final notes on the Satanic Temple. There are different campaigns that they run. I can't remember the names of them, but two stuck in mind specifically. One is, I think it's called Protect the Children.
Okay.
It's essentially in states where corporal punishment is still used. So like, for instance, using rulers
Oh, okay.
on children.
Like physical discipline?
Yeah. They inject themselves into that conversation. So from what I was reading, if they find out about it, they reach out to the leaders of wherever it's occurring, as well as officials that need to be involved.
That's really cool. Just like some badass like child protector religious gang.
And then the other one was...
I wonder if they get jackets.
Membership worth it for jacket alone. The other one was protection of abortion rights.
Also love that news.
Yeah, it being considered a part of a religious ritual, therefore it's protected under the law instead of a medical act.
Sure. That is fascinating to me. That is so fascinating to me. And also in that concept, the reason that Christians and Catholics say that you cannot get an abortion is for a religious reason. So the satanic perspective on it is quite antithetical to the Christian and Catholic perspective on it. And only one of those perspectives actually has the best interest of the physical human in mind. And it's the one that sounds bad.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Oh my God, seriously, that's fascinating.
And then the only other thing I had to say was there is a documentary about the Temple of Satan by, I believe it was Penny Lane, called Hail Satan.
Okay.
I did not get a chance to watch it, but I intend to if it's on any of the
Streaming platforms
that I own. And yeah, that was it. I feel like Satanism needs like a sunshiny theme song.
Satanism. Ba, ba, ba.
I loved it. Exactly what it sounds like.
That is what it sounds like. I loved this. I learned so much here today.
Well, what did you learn?
Oh, well, I would love to tell you. I learned that of all of the religions that I have ever learned about, I believe that Satanism, and from both perspectives, but each differently, okay, I do want to say that, but high level, speaking to Satanism as a religion, if I were to choose a religion based on my core values as a person, Satanism would probably be it. Like, and I can't tell you right now because obviously I'm not trying to pick a religion, but like I can't tell you which version of it I would choose, but if I had to pick one, that would probably be it. Like it really would, that or Buddhism. But I just think that's fascinating that like seriously, prior to this conversation, all I had in mind was goat sacrifices and blood and death and scary and hell and like worshiping, right? But like in hearing the true interpretation of it, it actually, just hear me say this, it actually makes me more fearful of Christian and Catholic religions than anything.
I get what you're saying.
Because I just so strongly disagree with those principles. And I also so strongly disagree with the level in which the people who follow those principles, and not everybody, obviously, but I'm just saying like, again, in my experience, the level in which they practice hypocrisy more than anything.
I feel that no Satanist would ever walk up to me and be like, you need to fucking believe in Satan.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's a big part of it.
Not necessarily believe in Satan because I don't believe in Satan, but you need to align with our religious beliefs
or you're wrong.
Yeah.
Or you're wrong. Or you can't do what you want to do with your body because my religion says you can't.
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck are you to tell me what I can do with my body because of your religion?
Plus, I honestly appreciate that both sides of the religion, or at least both sectors, I guess you could say, of Satanism, or the main ones I talked about, believe in science over some super old book.
Intangible. Yeah. And I know that that's a big deal for you, right? Being the scientific one, without question. But that's a big deal for me too, because even though I'm the abstract one who doesn't love history or science, I still appreciate validity.
Yeah.
I still appreciate proven things. And even though some of the things that I believe in and I align with can't be proven on paper, doesn't mean that I don't believe them. But it also doesn't change the fact that I like having it on paper. I don't need my belief to only be something that I feel. I do appreciate having it proven.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that they lead with fact also. That I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I think that's like the biggest thing that I learned.
The main thing that I learned was how many different divisions of Satanism there are.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, oh my God, no pun intended. Oh my Bahamut.
Oh my Bahamut.
I'm probably saying that wrong too. But anyways, that's why when I was researching, I decided I needed to narrow down to what in my mind were the two biggies, because there were just so many.
Well, I'm really glad that you chose those two, and I really appreciate all the research you did. And maybe if people enjoyed this perception on Satanism, maybe we do some of the other branches later. I don't know. If you guys would like that, please let us know. If you learned something from this today, or if you're like, please never talk about that again, like just holler at your girls, right? We're here.
We're probably not going to listen if you tell us to never talk about something again. Kind of the point of this podcast.
Probably not. So I was really just saying that out of a politeness. Don't tell us what we shouldn't talk about. But if you want to hear more of it, that will take.
Yeah. You want to tell them how to contact us?
I would love to. You are welcome to reach us at our email, which is taboospodcast@gmail.com. That's TABOOZE podcast@gmail.com. You can reach us on Facebook at Taboos, and on Instagram and Twitter at Taboos the Pod.
Indeed. Also, if you could leave us a review on Apple iTunes, that would be, I don't even know if it's called iTunes anymore. You're the Apple person. What is it? Apple Podcasts?
If you could leave us a review on Apple of sort, and also any other streaming platform, if you don't listen to an Apple of sort.
We love reading them.
We do love reading them. Also, if possible, if you could rate us, there's like some really cool algorithms and shit that we know nothing about, but it really helps bring us to more visibility to more people if that algorithm is doing its thing. So rating us really helps, and we really appreciate that too. Also, you guys keep the comments coming, keep the jokes coming, keep the shout outs coming. We really appreciate all of it.
Yeah.
Share us with somebody who might enjoy our sense of humor and weirdness.
Exactly.
And on that note,
do you
be taboos?